Welcome to the overview conference call for IE Market Research Corporation's 3Q 2010 Global Mobile Payments Market Forecast. On this call, we have Mr. Nizar Ahsani, Vice President of Research at IE Market Research Corporation, and Ms. Meenakshi Gansar, Independent Contributing Analyst at IEMR, Principal at MPay Connect, and formerly Director of Business Development, Mobile Payments at PayPal. Nizar and Meenakshi will be reviewing IEMR's latest mobile payments forecast and providing us with an overview of this exciting market and some of the key opportunities and challenges facing the mobile payments ecosystem.
Thank you, Meenakshi, for providing us with your insights into the exciting world of mobile payments. IEMR's models and surveys show that the total gross transaction value of mobile payments is set to exceed $1 trillion in 2014, a CAGR of 95% over the next 5 years. We are also forecasting that the total number of mobile payment users will exceed about 1 billion by 2014. This is one of the most aggressive forecasts on the growth of the mobile payment space out there. What, in your opinion, are the key global drivers that may cause this forecast to be realized over the next 5 years?
Thank you very much, Nizar. It's a pleasure to join you. When thinking about mobile payments, it's important to understand that to date there's been of two opposite trends that have been happening. One is in the domestic or developed markets, rather, and then the other one is in the emerging markets. And in the developed markets, we have seen, of course, Japan and South Korea build out proximity payments in the retail stores, as well as digital content and remote purchases. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we see what's happened in Kenya with the emerging markets around money transfers. So it's important to understand both sides of the spectrum when forecasting moving forward. Now, the way things have rolled out in Japan and Korea and South Korea are going to be quite different from other places around the world because of the regulatory environment and the vertical integration. I've been in this space now for 5 years, and having been at PayPal for 2 years and driving their mobile business development efforts for North America, I've come to the conclusion that mobile payments is most valuable when it comes to the cash segment. So cash-based areas will be most influenced by mobile payments. In the emerging market space, that really speaks to large populations of the unbanked. And when you look at the unbanked, there is a big trend for mobile remittances or remittances in general. So my view is that remittances is going to be, in cash-based markets, is going to be one of the largest drivers for mobile payments worldwide. On the opposite side of the spectrum, if we look at other developed markets, the rise of the smartphones and, of course, use of telephones such as, or mobile phones rather, such as the iPhone are going to lead to increasing purchases of digital transactions and ticket purchases. The last but not least, the question of the POS is something that we can address, I guess, in further questions and what's going to happen there.
Right. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that. What, in your opinion, are some of the downside risks in the global mobile payments ecosystem that may result in a less robust forecasted growth rate?
As far as NFC or just in general?
Just in general.
So the couple of things to keep in mind when we're looking at mobile payments and the forecast. One, of course, is the regulatory environment from one country to the next and how open it is to mobile payments. And so from one market to the next, it's going to be heavily influenced by the regulatory, the regulations that come about. The second thing, of course, and very important and oftentimes overlooked, is the value proposition to the consumer. So again, I believe that when you're going to something like mobile payments, which is really a form of electronic payments, it has a significant value proposition over cash in that it's safer, it's faster for money movement, it's more convenient. And that value proposition is significantly greater than cash, but not necessarily that much not much more significant than card usage. So one of the things to consider when looking at a market is how entrenched is card usage in that market, and is there a significant value proposition that mobile payments offers above using card? Because people change their behavior around payments not very often unless there's a real significant reason to do so.
Okay.
So those are the main challenges.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Next question. In terms of technology used, our surveys of banks and vendors continue to show that SMS will dominate the mobile payment space. However, the banking, retail, and vendor ecosystems seem to be showing a growing preference for NFC. We are forecasting NFC transactions to rise from 15% market share in 2009 to 33% by 2014. From your field experience, who are the key constituents in the NFC space, and what are the key opportunities and challenges that will be affecting NFC deployments globally?
So when we're considering NFC, before I even talk about the key constituents, it's important to understand the markets themselves. And NFC is prevalent in markets where there's going to be higher-end phones with the NFC chips, and also is potentially dependent on the retailer having a point-of-sale system that is NFC-enabled or contactless enabled. So it's important to understand that perhaps in the emerging markets, NFC will lag significantly versus the developed markets. Now, having said that, if we look at the developed markets, it's important to understand the key constituents, and those are the banks and associations on one side, merchants on another side, and then the mobile operators on another side. And that's in terms of the actual market. And of course, there's consumers, which are a key constituent as well. So when we look at the banks and associations, my view is that for them to deploy or push NFC is really a defensive move on their part. They want to make sure that if NFC does roll out, that they're not left in the dust, and as they were perhaps in Japan. So they want to make sure that they don't lose the volumes of the transactions that are occurring with the cards today. And in some respects, they want to be able to grab a cash market and go for those microtransactions that they may not have penetrated with card tremendously. On the merchant side, merchants, of course, are looking to differentiate themselves from other merchants. They're also looking to potentially lower transaction fees and drive costs down. So they're, of course, looking at this market as potentially an offensive market on their side. The mobile operators are looking at what Japan and what Docomo and SKT have done, and are interested in growing additional revenue areas for their business. So they also see this as an offensive move. Of course, the challenge here is that in developed markets where the cards and associations are quite prevalent, there's a very well-defined value chain, and it's very difficult to insert another entity in that value chain, be it a mobile operator or a platform company. So that's quite challenging in terms of how would this roll out, and of course, how would creating NFC in the developed world, how would that be significantly better than using card? And then, so that's actually speaking to the fourth constituent, the consumer, which is what is really that value proposition, aside from saying that, well, I know all I need to do is now carry my phone. You know, pulling a card out of the wallet's not that difficult at the end of the day. So what is it that's going to be significantly better? A couple other things to consider when looking at NFC is, have the merchants gone through a POS upgrade recently? because if they have, it could be difficult to convince them to do yet another upgrade. For instance, in Europe and in many parts of the world, the chip and PIN standard is fairly new, and so they did a POS upgrade not too long ago. That being said, when we look at the transportation and other cash-based transaction areas, NFC could be, in fact, a tremendous area to grow mobile payments. But once again, when we look at the emerging markets versus developed markets, it's important to understand what types of phones are being used. So SMS will be continue to be used in markets with low-end phones versus high-end phones like the developed markets.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. IEMR's mobile payments forecast model shows that merchandise purchases will track overall growth of the mobile payment market, growing at a CAGR of 95.7% over the next 5 years. This has not always been the case with merchandise purchases, which tend to lag payments for digital products or prepaid top-ups. What, in your opinion, are some of the areas of opportunity and challenges that will have an impact on how consumers move from the existing transaction modes, as you'd mentioned, such as credit cards and cash, to adopting the mobile medium for merchandise purchases?
So we just talked a little bit about the opportunities and challenges around NFC, and so, you know, in some ways we've addressed the merchandise purchases in the retail store and what the challenges and opportunities are there. I do believe that if there is going to be any kind of merchandise purchases in developed world markets, it is going to be through NFC, not through some other medium. In terms of retail purchases in emerging markets, it's important to address where the real pain point is with the consumer when rolling out a new payment system. So using cash at the retail store may not be the most painful area for payments for the emerging markets. Rather, moving money remotely via cash is the most difficult and painful and unsafe way of transmitting money. So I believe that in these emerging markets, purchasing in the retail stores are going to lag money transfers and potentially bill payment. The challenge in emerging markets for retail is who is going to be the merchant acquirer, since many of these systems don't really have a bank that's really leading the charge. So that piece is yet to be figured out, and there's also a high degree of fragmentation in a lot of these emerging markets. So how these merchants are acquired is a big question mark, and what the value proposition is to those merchants over cash, since a lot of these merchants see cash as free, even though it's not. In terms of purchasing merchandise over the phone, I believe that ticket purchases will indeed happen quite significantly over the mobile phone, but it is a big question mark whether people are going to buy larger physical goods over the phone, or if they're going to continue to purchase online over the PC. And really the question comes in terms of how much additional research is necessary to make that purchase. Because as we know, the mobile phone may not be the easiest method for consuming a lot of information and really digesting that information, whereas a larger screen is. So what I saw when I was at PayPal, of course, is that a lot of these larger ticket items tend to be purchased over the PC versus over the mobile phone.